began was in 1904, there was an Italian woman, and she was diagnosed with cancer in her uterine cervix. And doctors found a tumor that they called enormously large. She was also bitten by a dog and given the rabies vaccine just to ensure she didn't get rabies. And doctors were astonished that as a result, her tumor completely disappeared. She remained cancer-free for 8 more years, and then eventually she did relapse. So even though she did relapse eventually and her tumor did come back, this is kind of how the whole idea of using viruses to cure cancer started. It wasn't really researched until the 1990s, and today it is currently being researched pretty heavily. One virus was approved for head and neck cancer in China in 2005, and then there are several that are hoping to be approved in the US in the next few years. So recent research at the American Society of Clinical Oncology in 2013, they performed a study on advanced melanoma patients, and they found that 11% of the people who were treated with virotherapy had a complete response, meaning that they showed no sign of cancer after the treatment. And to be honest, when I first read this number, I was like, 11%, that's not very much. But when you compare it to other traditional methods, this is actually really high. For comparison, another drug approved in 2011 called vimurafenib had a less than 1% complete response rate. So the patients who were in this advanced melanoma study, they were treated with a virus called TBEC, and basically it was a genetically modified herpes virus. And so what it did was that it was programmed to destroy the tumor cells, but then it also produced a protein that kind of caused the immune system to come and destroy the tumor. And so 90% of the patients who had responded to this were shown to be cancer-free still 3 years later, so this is like a really good thing, like it works and it continues to work. And then another good thing about it is that instead of like chemotherapy or traditional drugs, it doesn't have as bad side effects. Like the worst ones found in this experiment were just like flu-like symptoms. So why do researchers and doctors like the idea of using viruses? One idea is that the viruses will usually go after the cancer cells and just leave the healthy cells alone. And then also, once they have infected the cancer cells, the viruses can just kind of like multiply and clone themselves, and then in doing so, they can use like the body to create more of the cells and kind of like self-treat. There's 2 ways that the virus can destroy the cells. One is it literally just blows the cancer cell apart just because there's so many. And then the other way is a little more subtle. The virus kind of programs the cancer cell to self-destruct. And then another advantage is that viruses kind of act as a combination therapy. Most traditional drugs, they can only target like one cell function at a time, so it's pretty easy for the cancer to become resistant. And then in addition, a lot of cancer cells, as like the tumor grows, they kind of evolve and change genetically, so it's a lot harder to find a drug that will work to cure and eradicate the entire cancer. But viruses can be genetically altered so that it's less likely for the cancer to become resistant. And then traditionally, doctors, when they did virotherapy, they kind of tried to suppress the immune system, and this was so that the viruses would have a chance to get to the cancer before the immune system just like caught the virus. But more recent studies have showed that this method doesn't really work. Allowing the immune system to come has kind of been one of the keys to success for it. And so what happens is the virus infects the cancer cells and it creates cellular debris, and it produces cytokines. They're small molecules that stimulate the immune system, and then so this just kind of alerts the immune system and it says, hey, there's something that shouldn't be here, and then the immune system goes and attacks the cancer.
So this shows some of the different ways that we can use viruses to kill cancer. One of the reasons why you'd want to have many different ways is because cancer adapts very easily. So if you only use one way, then it could find a way, like a loophole around it. And not every way works for every person. So you want to have many different options available, maybe one doesn't work. One of the ways that you can do is through apoptosis. Remember the this in school, every cell has a gene that makes a cell kill itself. And the cancer should have killed itself because it turned into a cancer, but for some reason it didn't. So all we have to do is have a virus that goes in and makes the gene that's already there be expressed. And so that would make the cancer cells just kill themselves. Or you can infect it through the virus, because when the virus comes out of the cell lyses or breaks out, and so it dies. Yeah. So one of the problems with this is to make sure the virus only attacks cancer cells. You wouldn't want it to attack their healthy cells. So one of the ways is because cancer cells replicate so much, they have a lot of extra parts in them for cell replication. So they started making a virus that is not able to make thymine. So it needs to get it from other cells, and cancer has a lot of it because it replicates so much. So it would be more likely to go in the cancer cells. And also, some cancer cells don't have very good antiviral defenses, so they might be able to take advantage of that too. So she kind of already talked about this, but the immune system is very good at killing something if it knows it needs to be killed. So all we have to do is make sure that the immune system knows, okay, this is a cancer, you have to kill it. One of the ways you can use that is to make viruses go to the cancer and make the cancer make antigens that the body already knows is harmful. So when they see these cells making the antigens, they'll recognize it that it's bad and it needs to be killed. Some cancers, they have very different types of cells, including a kind of cell that suppresses the immune system, so the immune system doesn't kill the cancer. And so some researchers are researching ways to shut down those cells so that we tries to get the immune system to kill the cancer would work better. Clearly this is still in progress, they're not really done with it yet. Because we have many different ways and kind of need to have many different ways to kill a cancer, even for one individual, we're not sure if adding all these many different things on one person might be dangerous. Each one alone is safe, up till now from what we have seen. But maybe if we add like 5 different things on 5 different kinds of viruses to a single person, that might be too much. We're not so sure yet.
Do we have time for more?
Yes, go ahead, yeah.
I think he's asking for what he's going to have for lunch.
You can also increase resolution.
We can do a bad lip reading.
Cochran cancer.
I really hungry already, so
Take it easy.
Who wants to talk about this stuff?
The challenge for doctors.
Now San Antonio's Cancer Therapy and Research Center is testing a new kind of agent called a biologic therapy, and it's showing great promise, as Ken's 5's Wendy Rigby reports.
Kenny Scott's cancer journey began 4 years ago when doctors removed a lemon-sized tumor from his arm. It turned out to be soft tissue sarcoma.
About 1 centimeter.
This summer, the cancer returned in the form of small tumors in his lungs.
We could go with the chemotherapy, but it was going to be extremely bad. It would not cure it.
How you doing, kid?
Scott opted for an experimental therapy called Reolysin. It works totally differently than chemotherapy. For 5 straight days every 4 weeks, patients are infused through an IV with a living virus. Normal cells don't allow the virus to replicate, but cancer cells do. So the virus copies over and over again in the diseased cells until the cells die and release thousands more viruses to continue the work.
They don't have the possibility of inactivating the virus, so the virus will replicate inside of the cancer cell and finally will kill the cancer cells.
8 cancer patients have gotten the experimental treatment in San Antonio so far. And while they feel like they have the flu for a few days, the side effects are much less toxic than conventional therapies. For patients like Scott, it's a last best hope.
I'm expecting good positive results from it. If this drug really does work, it's got amazing possibilities.
Good morning.
Oncologists say that biologic therapy may work in tandem with other treatments, making it even more effective for different kinds of patients.
We can spare normal cells while killing the cancer cells. I definitely think it's a promising agent, absolutely.
Rheolysin is also being tried in patients with melanoma and ovarian cancers. If it proves successful, it will still be 3 to 5 years before it's widely available. Reporting live, Wendy Rigby, KENS 5 Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Wendy. Well, are your kids?
One last thing, this is still very new and experimental. It doesn't work on everybody. Like she said, it was like 11% rate, so that's kind of bad. But when you think of someone who has like a deadly cancer and their prognosis is that you have a few months to live, then 11% doesn't seem that bad. So this might not be a very good way to treat people who whose cancer isn't progressed that far and traditional treatments can work. But if you have no other hope, then better than nothing.
Questions? No question at all?
They were very thorough.
What was the